Hey guys, April Rain here. I got to explain something really quick to you. I don't mean to be talking down to you. What's happening is something's going on with my webcam. So when I get really close, it like fades out and gets all grainy, and I don't know what's going on. But it seems like the farther I get away, the better it looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be standing up, looking down, but not talking down to you. Okay, that might actually happen. So today's topic is the whole Bunkerville, Bundy, BLM crap that's going on. It's all over the news, this and that. A lot of disinformation headed out there. But there's this alleged BLM whistleblower. I watched the video, and I ended up with more questions than I had before watching the video, mostly about him. Now, why is that? Well, most whistleblowers actually have verifiable evidence to back their claims. How do I know this? Well, look at the whistleblowers. They have evidence that can be verified. This is part of my law library in the kitchen because I'm always in the kitchen doing something, cooking, cleaning, whatever. So, one of my favorite whistleblowers out there, Julia Davis. Yeah. She has verifiable information, so much so that she can actually make a whole DVD out of it. And there's the Black Hawk helicopter that landed in her yard. And there's the a-holes that, invaded her house and all kinds of things. Those are just not the only two verifiable evidence that she has. She brings forth, the information that these guys got through without being checked at the border. And that's what started her with the whole whistleblowing, where she was going, hey, work, what happened? Well, they didn't like what she was doing, so they started going after her, so she started whistleblowing about them going after her. So she's a double whistleblower. Get it. Top priority. The terror within. It's awesome. It's set up so good. Anyway, I didn't see any verifiable information from this guy. So what I'm going to do, and I will apologize right now to Gary and anyone else who gets offended, but I have questions. And there's some things that he said that made my little radars go beep, 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 only because I was born in Vegas, lived in Vegas. I know where Lake Mead is. I know where Bunkerville is. I know where Mesquite is. I know lots of things. Now, I haven't been there in a long time. And, long time. But it didn't make Lake Mead move to a different location. It didn't mean that Mesquite now moved to a different location. It didn't mean Bunkerville is sitting somewhere else now. Okay? These places are still in the same spot. Now there's just a flippin' casino out in an area that I used to go out to all the time. No buildings out there. Well, there was Bonnie Springs, but anyway, I'm digressing. So what I'm saying is the locations of these places, they didn't change. They didn't change. All right. And he said a few things that really alerted me to question whether he is really, a valid person that worked or still works at BLM and is whistleblowing, or if he's some guy who came out of the woodwork, listened to what a few other people had to say about stuff that they'd been researching, gathered it up, and is playing with that game, jumping on the bandwagon. So let's find out. I'll be playing the video, and when I feel like it, I'm going to interject. So again, my apologies go out to Gary and everyone else if it ticks you off.
We've been following the money. On the 10th, we reported the militia arrived in the area and cited a former BLM volunteer and a Nevada land broker who revealed to us the true value of the land and the parties who are interested in it. Now, welcome to the program, Rusty.
Hello, Gary. Thanks for having me.
So, Rusty, before we get into the deep research that we've revealed here, how did you become an expert in this field?
Well, I grew up in eastern Kansas, and as the Kansas City suburbs grew out to our cattle ranch, my father started subdividing the land and getting involved in this type of business. And I learned a lot as a kid growing up. And he used to always quote Roy Rogers, the guy that went out north of L.A. and started paying top dollar for worthless land, that you got to figure out where the people want to go and get there first. So I grew up in that kind of environment. Eventually, when I was in my mid-30s, I was just sort of traveling around trying to figure out, where the next land boom would be. And I was hanging out in Florida, hanging around real estate bigwigs, and started learning that the Las Vegas Valley was a really good bet because the casinos were growing in the late 80s and providing a lot of jobs. And there was at least 80,000 acres of really cheap available land in the Las Vegas Valley. So I did research and discovered that most of that land was originally given to Howard Hughes.
Now, you actually worked for the Howard Hughes Corporation, and you assisted them. Can you tell us about that?
Well, sort of what happened is the Howard Hughes heirs, they had a company called Summa Corporation in the early to mid 90s, and they were having trouble finding certain parcels of the land that they inherited. And because of the knowledge that I gained as a volunteer for the BLM and other research that I did and do at the Clark County Recorder's office.
Okay, so he got his start by growing up in Kansas, and his dad's a cattle rancher or something. Starts, selling off his land for money. And then fast forward in his 30s, he is in Florida. Okay. And then all of a sudden he says he volunteers. Still, you just heard it, for the BLM and the Clark County, That makes him an expert.
They hired me to help them find certain parcels that they were looking for that they couldn't find.
So they lost parcels and couldn't find where they put them. Oh no! How do you do that? How do you lose a parcel? It's in the books forever and always. It tells you the latitude and longitude of the parcel. How do you lose a parcel? I can't find it. It's gone. I have lost my pencil. Ah!
And so that was one of the initial things that got me involved in land use issues and what's going on with land. It started out specifically in the Las Vegas Valley. I helped them identify where 20,000 acres was and was able to get the records from the Clark County Recorder's office and help them organize their situation so that they could sell the land.
Phew! It wasn't lost. He found it. Where? In the records. Oh my God, the BLM doesn't know how to check records. Really? Hello? Anyone? No, I'm just the one freaking out here going, BLM don't know how to check them records, buddy. Hire me for it, 'cause I know where they is.
They weren't able to sell the land because they didn't have the proper records and everything in hand.
I'm sorry, BLM. You cannot sell that property because you don't have the proper paperwork in hand. But didn't he just say he got it? He found it? So either he did or he didn't. You either have the paperwork or you don't. Let's continue.
And I became an expert at being able to figure out, what's what and all that sort of thing.
So he's an expert in figuring out what's what and that sort of thing.
So when the Bundy Ranch situation flared up, what was your first inclination? What was your instinct to begin research?
Well, I knew right away that the general media was lying. They weren't explaining the right issue. They were talking about turtles at first. Well, I worked as a volunteer in Red Rock, in the Red Rock National Conservation Area for over 10 years on the turtle situation.
So again, he's a volunteer and dealt for 10 years in Red Rock on the turtle situation because it was so bad and devastating. It was. It really was. In all my years of going out there, I never once saw a turtle. A lot of burros walking around like marshmallows, by the way. You'll get in big trouble for feeding them now, too. You used to be able to go out and feed them and pet them. Never, ever did I see a turtle. Maybe that was the problem. There weren't any. I don't know. But for 10 years, he's volunteering out in the Red Rock area. The last thing I heard, he was in Florida. Duh. Didn't say when he went to Vegas, though, did he? Oh, that was so he could become a real estate tycoon because there was lots of cheap property back then. Yeah, okay. There really wasn't. Hate to break it to you, but there really wasn't. In fact, in the 80s, Vegas was booming and real estate was at one of the highest peaks it had at that time. Anytime before that. We all know about the crash that it suffered. Yeah, but it was the 80s and 90s. Vegas was booming. The real estate was not cheap. So I don't know what he's talking about. Really, I don't.
And there isn't any issue with protecting the desert tortoise out in that area where the Bundy Ranch is. It doesn't have anything to do with that. And the first clue to that came to me in the early 90s after they completed the I-15. They put this huge multi-million-dollar intersection in the middle of nowhere west of Bunkerville. And that was the first clue that there's some kind of big plan going on out there with that real estate out there. You don't put a huge highway interchange in the middle of nowhere.
So basically, by putting the interstate intersection, they're planning to build something. And now, with the Bundy Ranch situation flaring up, the BLM comes in. They're trying to force him off of his land. And in the research that you've uncovered, the magnesium dolomite is a rich mineral in the ground, and it has military applications.
Yeah, well, what happened was in the early 90s, the federal government, Congress, ordered that all of the real estate surrounding the Las Vegas area, all of the government land be surveyed.
So now it's suspicious when the federal government decides to survey? Are you sure about that? Because these surveys actually have to be done before a state can become a state because they figure out the boundaries of everything. But shame on them for doing such a bad thing of ordering a survey be done. Damn it. Very suspicious.
And because of my volunteer work for the BLM for many years, cleaning up trash all over the place, and I'm an avid four-wheel driver and hiker.
So now you're cleaning up trash for the BLM. How many turtles did you pick up on the way?
I've been on every byway, back road, trail that you can imagine within a 50 to 100 mile radius of Las Vegas. And right away, whenever surveyors were coming out from the Geological Survey to do the congressional mandated survey, quite often they requested that I would escort them out there because I know how to get in and out of these areas. A lot of these areas are really dangerous and and you have to have experience to get in and out, and you have to know what you're doing.
So it's very dangerous. You have to know what you're doing if you go anywhere outside of the Vegas area because it's so dangerous. It's dangerous. So did he volunteer to risk his life, possibly step in a turtle hole and twist his ankle? Or did he have someone show him around? I don't know. What do you think? Lots of questions. His story isn't adding up. Not in my book, anyway. And as for him working for Howard Hughes, Howard Hughes has been dead for a while. Just in case you didn't know. And, yeah, there's errors in this little company that, whatever. Does he have any proof that he worked for them? I don't know. If I worked for Howard Hughes, I would definitely have the evidence. At least a pay stub that said, I work for Howard Hughes.
And I actually escorted surveyors out to this Bundy Ranch area, and that's how I first became familiar with it. And I was really surprised when we were exiting that exit there my first time. I was going, what's this huge interchange doing here in the middle of nowhere? And then we go down and we go up, and they wanted to go up and survey up to the Utah border, up in this real rugged mountain area. And I was like, what's up with this? And a lot of these surveyors before that, there was a lot of areas that we surveyed where there's a lot of old abandoned mines.
Okay, it got cold because I don't live in Vegas anymore. And it does get cold there. It does snow. Side note. So he hasn't actually said when he took these surveyors to these dangerous areas that you have to know what they're doing and where you're going. And then he actually says, I've never been to the Bunkerville Bundy Ranch area. This is my first time there. So how does he know where to go and where not to, and what's dangerous and what's not? Well, now we're going to get to hear how dangerous it really is in Nevada because of the mine shafts. Something that many other states don't have, like Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Not! They got them too. Come on. People.
And actually, it's a real dangerous situation in southern Nevada. There's a huge amount of old abandoned mines. Almost all of them were magnesium mines. A lot of the bedrock all around this area is magnesium dolomite. And wherever any of this dolomite exists near an ancient undersea volcanic vent, there's real high quality magnesium rocks. The reason why I know this is because when I first started coming across these rocks, they look like meteorites. And I thought it'd be, the first time I found one, I go, this looks like a meteorite. So I rushed back to Las Vegas with it, and the geologist told me, no, it's not a meteorite. This is magnesium.
Okay, now I'm going to give you a due diligence homework assignment. Google magnesium dolomite. Do it. Pause this video right now, Google it, and then come back.
And he explained the whole geological situation about it. And he explained to me that there's like a plant in the Las Vegas Valley that blew up years ago, where they used to pay people to go out and mine this magnesium, and they would sell it like on the open market, and they would get a lot of money for it, and they use it to make rocket fuel.
Okay, so you've got your magnesium dolomite window open, right? So you have that definition and you know what that is. All right, so in 2006, I think it was 2006, I'm pretty sure, 2006, there was a plant that did explode. It was in Henderson. Okay, so you actually have to go from Henderson to Las Vegas and then up the interstate to reach Bunkerville and Mesquite. Mesquite is north of Bunkerville. And I don't know if my hand gestures are going to make the map out correctly for you or not. That's why I said Google the Las Vegas. Google it, get the map, you'll see. You'll see Red Rock directly on, looking at the map on the left, west. Lake Mead directly on the right. Henderson is right in between. There's also Green Valley, which is technically Henderson, but they needed to sell the real estate and people weren't real hip on moving to Henderson, so they gave it a new name, Green Valley. Long story, and I'm digressing. But he's talking about a plant that somehow blew up and put this rock that he thought was a meteor up by Bunkerville? What?
And it was a real big business during World War II, and it continued after World War II for a significant time period. And then that whole thing kind of died down to a certain extent because a lot of people were freaking out because there's all these holes that are really deep all over southern Nevada. That in these miners, they went in and they dug out these holes, and then they left and they didn't fix anything. So it's really dangerous.
And now, without missing a beat, we're back at the mine shafts. None of his story is even, the timeline is so screwed up, I can't even keep trace of what he's talking about and when, the time frame, anything. Now we're back to World War II. Okay, whatever.
And some of the volunteer work that I used to do for the BLM is to go out and put fences and warning signs around these holes. You could be hiking around, and your kid could be running around and fall into one of these old mine shafts, and they're done. And in fact, it's happened quite often. Kids and stuff will get trapped in these mine shafts.
So now you are to believe, without a doubt, that kids fall into empty mine shafts, abandoned mine shafts, all the time in Clark County. Do yourself a favor, Google Nevada abandoned mine fall. Kid fell in abandoned mine, Nevada. There was one who did fall in, but it wasn't a kid. It was a man. And I'll tell you the first bit of the story. It was in March of 2011. A father of 5 children has died after falling into a Nevada mine shaft so deep and treacherous that rescuers had to abandon efforts to reach him while he was still alive. Devin Westenskow, 28, of Evanston, Wyoming, Google it, see where it's at, worked at a geothermal drilling operation and had gone exploring Wednesday with 2 friends during his off hours when he fell 190 feet into the open shaft northeast of Reno, nowhere near Clark County. Okay, so I can't find a plethora of stories of kids falling into mine shafts. I did find a story where this guy got stuck on Red Rock, and rescuers had to come out and get him and stuff. But that was years ago too. But that's not a mine shaft, so I'm digressing. But seriously, if you can find a plethora of stories that prove it happens all the time, please send them to me. I'd greatly appreciate it because I can't find them.
Let's talk about the Harry Reid connection, because the investigation that you uncovered at the Clark County Assessor's Office revealed that they actually have corporations that are bordering the Bundy property. Could you explain in detail?
Well, the way it works is like the Roy Rogers things that my father used to quote is you got to figure out where the people are going to be and get there first. One of the best examples of that is McDonald's. What McDonald's does, McDonald's is not a hamburger company. They're one of the largest real estate companies in the world. The hamburger situation is just there so that they can cash in on the real estate. So what people do is they try to figure out what's going to happen with the rules and regulations with any particular area, and try to go in early and buy land when it's cheap, and then hold on to it. Because land, you don't have to pay a whole lot of tax on it, and certain things. And then what happens is, as the development starts, then you can make deals and lease deals, and the value of the land goes up. Basically, what happens is every time a piece of land is subdivided, technically all the related land goes up in value, because they don't subdivide any land unless there's some kind of developments in the future expected to happen there.
Okay, so if that were true, then Pahrump by now should be a huge metropolis. I mean, it is just outside of Clark County where prostitution is illegal, and Pahrump in the county next door, and very, very, very close to Las Vegas. It's legal. So why isn't that a huge metropolis? Why hasn't Pahrump taken over Las Vegas? And why is Mesquite still Mesquite? And Bunkerville, it's still an unincorporated town of less than, what, 1,300 people? Do you think that those people are not tight-knit, that they don't know what's going on in their own backyard? They do. They do know. So this is not close to what we're talking about with real estate deals. A real estate tycoon isn't going to bother with Bunkerville. They're not. No offense, Bunkerville people, because I think your area is awesome, but you've kept the prices high enough to keep people out. Oh, and one more thing. When he's saying they, as in they subdivide and this and that, they're not going to subdivide and people aren't going to buy this up. The they that are subdividing isn't BLM. It's the rancher or whomever, like his daddy, not BLM. So again, I'm still trying to figure out his actual expertise, because I don't know, none of this is making any sense. He jumps around way too much from, World War II to the 90s, and then back, and then forth, and then Florida, and then so I'm trying to understand. Wait a minute. He grew up on a Kansas cattle ranch. His dad sold off property, subdividing it. Area must have been building up. I wonder if that area is a big, huge metropolis now. He didn't give that area, though, did he? He didn't tell you what town this was in.
So do you believe that Harry Reid and the corporations surrounding him have plans on that property itself?
Well, this
or
is
do they have advanced knowledge of developments that'll take place there, hence the highway?
Okay, well, this is what the situation is. The first clue to what's going on is a highway. And so whenever a highway goes in somewhere, there are these real estate people that are called vultures. And what the vultures do is they look for first when the roads are going to get in. And they try to anticipate before the road goes in and start buying up land. Well, what adjacent to where the road is, sometimes it can be kind of risky because sometimes plans change and different things go on. And usually the people that are most successful in being a vulture are ones that are connected to the government that's involved in planning where the road goes. And so what happens is what as a vulture real estate developer, what you're looking for is you're looking for land that is that a highway is going to be put in nearby, and you want to have some kind of future knowledge about what sort of development is going to go on so that you can place your land purchases strategically in a way where there'll be high quality roads, commercial area nearby, access to whatever's going on. And this kind of planning usually starts 20 to 30 years in advance. And I personally believe that there's people that high up in the federal government that take advantage of these situations.
Notice how he didn't actually answer Gary's question here, but then went on to give us an education of real estate vultures. And then, said these things are 30 years in the making and whatever. So are you going to tell me that Harry Reid 30 years ago, do you know where he was 30 years ago? Said, yes, I want that Bunkerville, Bundy area land. I want it. But he's not clarifying whether it's the BLM land or something else.
Well, let's talk about some of the irregularities and anomalies that you discovered in the public record. What did you find?
Okay, well, basically, whenever I was researching land before technology was available, I would go down to the county assessor's office and go through all the recorded land histories of each parcel.
Again, apparently something the BLM has no idea how to do because they hired you to do that, right? To go down to the county assessor because they don't know that's where the records are. Because remember, they lost parcels before. You had to find them.
Well, now Clark County is real high tech now, and you can do a lot of that research right online. It's really easy. And so they have a system that used to be called the Info Mapper. I think it has a new name now. I forgot exactly what it is, but you can load up. You can go onto that page, and you can click around on the page, and everywhere you click, it pops up the history of the land of that particular parcel. It tells you the size of it, the ownership history, and what's been going on. And so what I did was when this Bundy thing started getting into the news a couple of weeks ago, is I went on to the Clark County Assessor's website, and I started clicking around, checking out the land history of the lands there. And in the normally strategic areas where someone would want to acquire land and be able to cash in later on down the road in the future by owning this land, I started checking out the history. And there's most of the original landowners in the Bunkerville area are Mormon elders. And I actually worked for a Mormon elder for a few years in Las Vegas, helping him with some of this research because they were worried about some of their people doing crooked land deals. And so I educated him on how to find out what's going on with these lands. And they were actually concerned about the Bunkerville area back in the mid-90s. So anyway, what I did was I started clicking around. I noticed really strange things going on that are not normal in these types of situations related to the BLM. Basically, in general, the original mandate is that the BLM is managing sections, 640-acre parcels. They're sections. And the only time they're managing a land smaller than a section is if they have a section that borders private land. I started noticing during around 1996 and on, they started acquiring intermingling properties, smaller sections, and going in and somehow acquiring what used to be private land, and then the recorded history was disappearing on some of these recorded parcels. And I started blowing the whistle on that around 1996 and 1997, and I couldn't get any clear answers from anybody. Like in the county recorder's office, I was like, and they would say, oh, well, it's the federal government. They do what they're going to do.
Well, let me ask you that. So how did people respond to your whistleblowing on this?
Nobody really cared, and the important people that I associates in the real estate business, they said, well, then let's figure out what's going on and get in there and make some money. And
now some of these properties had no cost at all. They were basically given to these corporations.
Basically, on that State Highway 170 that goes from that intersection in the middle of nowhere on the I-15 into Bunkerville, I started looking. Usually, those are the kind of places where this kind of stuff goes on. So I started clicking around in the area associated with that road that goes into Bunkerville there, just northeast of the Bunkerville property. And I noticed that a lot of the suspicious land activity started in the mid-'80s. And and there's some of the parcels that I clicked on had histories that were reminiscent from my past experience of somebody having some kind of land battle. Sometimes what will happen is a bank will, you'll get a loan from a bank, and then you'll go into financial trouble, and the bank will try to take your land. And then usually what happens is somehow a big company ends up with it.
And I've got a friend who actually had that happen to him where a big corporation ended up owning his property. The bank decided to foreclose, and then this corporation ended up owning his property, which is really funny because it was a company that would be considered a competitor of his. But it's not the BLM. He's mixing you up, folks. He's talking about private land deals, private foreclosures, nothing to do with the BLM. Nothing. I promise you. I mean, how do you go from, oh, I work with a lot of bigwigs, and yeah, this Bunkerville area is going to be big one day. Ha! Seriously? For people to believe that, they would have to never have been there. It's just the way it is. And I don't know how many of you travel, but I've traveled back and forth across the states numerous times. And there is always an intersection that's in the middle of nowhere. Why? Because people need to stop and get gas, or to pee, or to get a cup of coffee. See, they used to be known as rest stops, but, since we've corporatized a lot of things, you end up finding, McDonald's in the middle of nowhere. In fact, there was a place we stopped at in Kansas, ironically, and it was literally in the middle of nowhere. I don't know where any of these people who worked there, where they lived, because there was literally no housing that you could see. You couldn't see it. And if you know Kansas, it's flat. You can see the literal horizon because there's nothing there in your way. I don't know where these people lived, and I've got my own suspicions about that place. I won't go there now. So he's still mixing up apples and oranges and trying to make it somehow the BLM, when all he's done with the BLM is volunteer to something with turtles and pick up garbage. Is there any evidence that he even picked up garbage for the BLM? I'm just wondering, seriously. And he still has no valid timeline. I mean, he should be able to say, oh, then years ago I was doing this, and then in my 30s. You know what? I was born on this date. I decided what I want to do on this date, and things didn't work out, around this time, and on and on and on. When you tell something that you tend to do it in a progressive session, meaning a timeline. I'm still waiting for the evidence, though, that he picked up trash for the BLM. Just waiting.
It's really strange how, and this is strange. This kind of thing doesn't happen in Kansas, but I started noticing it happens a lot in Southern Nevada. And you can't get, and it's really hard to, when you go, like when I go and try to find the original owners, they won't talk. They're scared, these people. And so what I did is I noticed that some of those parcels there had some strange histories that involved banks, like Zion's Bank Corp. And then as I kept clicking, the Reed family name started popping up. And I know from my relationships with some Mormon elders that the Reed family is a very small, tight-knit family, Mormon family, and there aren't that many of them. So if the name Reed pops up in Nevada or Utah, they're related. And so then when I started clicking on the Cedar Development Court, and it looked like that they weren't paying for the land. I mean, there was no assessed value on the land, and it said, the county record says that they didn't pay any money for it.
You know that you can actually gift land, right? You can pass it on to your heirs or assigns with a zero money passing. So yeah, it would show up as zero. Sorry, but you can. If you look, and I won't show it to you because I'm doing everything I can to protect the land that I believe is inherited to me, regardless of what other people think. But on that, when you look at it, when it passes down or passes over to somebody, the heir or assigns, it will say zero. Why? Because it's granted, it's given from me, the private property owner, to whomever I want. I don't actually have to, quote, sell it. What you're seeing there is the price, not, I mean, this is stupid. And now he's going to say every single $0 assessment that, or transfer that you see is from BLM to a private person. That's not how it works. That is not how federal property goes. Oh, by the way, yeah, I do have the act of Congress that brought Nevada in, and I don't care what the Constitution says, the Nevada one, because they were pretty much, strung up. They were. Um, that brings me to another story, but they were. So I don't really care what the Nevada Constitution says about them giving up this and that and blah, blah, blah. That's really not what it says, by the way. You have to read it for what it meant, intended at the time. I've got the act of Congress that brought Nevada in, and if you want to, I'll leave a link to it in the box below so you can read it, and you'll see exactly what happened with the lands that Congress declared to have happened with the lands. But yeah, to say that there's 0 on it, so it's a BLM land transfer, that's asinine. It's asinine. This guy is no real estate tycoon. He's no bigwig. He's a volunteer who picks up garbage and looks over turtles for the BLM. But we're going to get to a part here pretty soon, which should raise a lot of eyebrows, because it did for me and a few other people. Specifically, I'm going to give a shout out to someone who, showed me the picture, and I was like, wait a minute, you're right. This should raise a lot of flags, especially since this guy isn't an employee of the BLM, but what? A volunteer.
And then I started clicking the adjacent USA properties around it, and during the history, the size of those parcels started shrinking, and they always shrunk in related, similar to the similar time periods that changes happened to the status of some of these other lands, like Cedar Development Corp. In these Reed Family Trusts and these other LLCs that started buying up these lands, or started ending up with these lands.
Well, Rusty, let me ask about the Reed Bunkerville LLC, the Reed Family Trust. These groups, these corporations, these trusts, some of them paid nothing for the land. So how does a corporation suddenly just get something for nothing?
Right. That's what I'm saying. What's going on here? I mean, the adjacent BLM parcels started shrinking, and then their parcels started growing, and there's no record of were they buying it or paying for it or what. And I've also noticed in other areas, not exactly in this area, but the BLM buying deeded land for hugely outrageous prices. Small, like there was a parcel down further down the Virgin River there, adjacent to the state wildlife area. They paid over $700,000 for a 10-acre parcel. Now, why? I mean, in that 10-acre parcel, I looked closer at it. It has no strategic value whatsoever. So why would they pay $700,000 for a 10-acre parcel in the middle of nowhere? At the most, it's maybe worth $10,000 or $20,000.
The Bureau of Land Management paid $700,000 for a 10-acre parcel of land. Who did they buy it from?
The history is in there. I identified that particular parcel in my video as I was clicking through the area there, and there's that kind of stuff is going on all over Clark County, all over the place, and I would say that there's one of two reasons for that. Somebody politically connected owned that land and cashed in off the taxpayer, or the BLM is trying to acquire that land for some other reason, and they're willing to pay top dollar for that. Those are the only two reasons. That's the only two reasons that I think that they would pay an outrageously high price for a piece of land that doesn't make any real economic sense. I would say that just based on my experience with what goes on in Nevada, this particular area here, because of the really hard to the access area to the east, I mean, it's almost impossible to get onto this land from the east. And the fact that it's bordered by Lake Mead and the Colorado River to the south and the Overton Arm.
Bunkerville is not bordered by Lake Mead. It's not. Again, pull up the Las Vegas Google map and you'll see where Lake Mead is. And there's a lot of areas on Lake Mead that you actually can't get to by road. I know this because, all right, I'm just going to totally digress here. I know this because years ago, I was out there with a whole bunch of people, and I ended up breaking my foot on a houseboat, and I won't tell you how or why or what happened, but I did. And I ended up getting a lift to the shore via raft. Couldn't walk. I mean, my foot was just killing me. And the night before, I thought, well, I'll just sleep it off, whatever. It was on a houseboat. And probably giving too much information here. So I had to, because everyone else is really busy partying it up, I stumbled my way to my car. I broke my right foot, which means I had to drive my car with my left foot. That was a challenge, I'm going to tell you. But there are little tiny, and I hate to use this word, but hospitals located throughout. You can only get to them by road, and where we were wasn't quite a road. And I got myself there, and the guy, you know, halfway casted my foot. It was that temporary thing, and then said, yeah, I get to a real hospital, you know, in Las Vegas, because it's not in Las Vegas. Lake Mead is not in Las Vegas. So for him to say Bunkerville, the Bundy Ranch, is surrounded with Lake Mead is asinine. This tells me he doesn't even know where Lake Mead is. Now, you can also look up the Colorado River, and yeah, it goes by. Of course it goes by. Duh. But Lake Mead is nowhere near the Bundy Ranch or Bunkerville. It's nowhere near Mesquite. It's, if you were on northern Las Vegas, you would say, yeah, Lake Mead's super nearby, as opposed to if you were, you know, sitting over on Hollywood Boulevard, which is far, far, far north, south, east, sorry, by Nellis Air Force Base. Nellis Air Force Base is closer to Lake Mead than Bunkerville. Just so frustrating, especially when I hear, oh yeah, it's surrounded by Lake Mead. It's not! Again, another asinine statement. And this guy, I don't know really who he is, but we really need to figure it out. Because there's a picture of him. I'm going to be showing it, and I don't know if I already passed it in the video because I wasn't really paying attention. I wanted to reiterate comments, but you'll see the picture, and I'll give you a screenshot of when it pops up and everything. When you see this picture, your alarm buttons should be going off. And I'm sorry this video is taking so long, but, you know, c'est la vie.
And the fact that the BLM has been evicting people out of the area to the west of there for the last 10 years, that the highest value to this land is its remote area that they can carry on secret activities on. They can secure this area very well.
So what do you anticipate being the military application of the property itself?
Yes, let's do talk about the military implication of this, or, you know, something that looks like, you know, guys in combat uniform, right? I'm gonna stop at this point, you know, tearing apart everything that he says. What you need to see is this. Okay, so hopefully you are seeing this. It was taken, this screenshot was taken at 24 minutes into this video. That's supposed to be him. It's supposed to be him. Tell me of a volunteer who picks up garbage or who deals with the danger of turtles for 10 years, way before this whole Bundy thing. Tell me, does that look like a volunteer to you? I mean, he's in full combat gear, right? That's him, don't you think? Maybe it's not, but why would they show this picture with him? Is it to prove that he's liable, that he's reliable? I'd say it's to prove that he's liable. Who is this man, Rusty Hill? Why is he in full combat gear when all he has done is pick up garbage and look out for turtles, all the while being a, what was that? Oh yeah, volunteer. Does that look like a volunteer type of dude to you? Maybe, maybe not. Come on, folks, I can't be the only one going, what the hell is going on? This doesn't look right. You can go to the video that I've been tearing apart, and at 24 minutes, 21 seconds for sure, you'll see this picture. That's supposed to be him. Does that look like a volunteer picking up garbage? Does that look like a volunteer making sure the turtles are safe? Have you been had, perhaps? Is it a possibility?